When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that comes when the last piece of a puzzle finally snaps into place and you see the whole picture, and it's nothing like you hoped it would be. I looked at her standing there in the doorway of what used to be my kitchen. Her arms were crossed. Her face was firm. And behind her, my own son was looking down at his feet, silent. The clock on the wall ticked 3 times. I remember that sound so clearly. Tick, tick, tick. Like a tiny hammer, nailing the lid shut on 53 years of my life. I just nodded. I said, "All right." My voice was calm, like a still pond. "No whoops." Inside, I felt that stillness too. A deep, tired quiet. All the fighting was done. All the explaining. All the hoping. It was over. I turned and walked to the small bedroom they called my room. The guest room. I looked at the single bed, the lamp, the empty suitcase in the corner. For a moment, I saw my whole world in that room. It had shrunk year by year until it could all fit right here. My love, my sacrifices, my name. It all fit into one suitcase. And the man I had given it all up for, my husband Arthur, was sitting in the living room watching television. He didn't hear her ask me to leave. And even if he had, he wouldn't have known who I was. Not anymore. This is my story. It's not a story about cruelty, not really. It's a story about slow fading. It's about how love can become duty, and how duty can become invisibility. And it's about the moment you realize you have to save yourself, even if it means walking away from everything you built. And my name is Helen. I was born in a small town where the river bends. I met Arthur when I was 19. He was 22, with kind eyes and hands that were always moving, always building something. He wasn't a talker. He was a doer. He'd show you he cared by fixing your broken step, by planting a rose bush right under your window. I was a dreamer. I loved books. I wanted to be a teacher. I had these visions of standing in front of a classroom, opening up worlds for children. But then there was Arthur. And his smile felt like a safer, warmer world. When he asked me to marry him, he built the ring box himself, little hinges and all. He said, "Helen, I'll build you a good life." And I believed him. I chose that promise. I put my application for teacher's college in a drawer. I told myself there would be time later. Love first. Building our life first. And we did build it. He worked at the lumberyard. I took a job as a secretary at the local school. It wasn't teaching, but I was near the classrooms. I could hear the children's voices in the hallways. We saved every penny. We bought a little house with a big backyard. It needed a lot of work. Arthur would come home tired, but he'd still pick up his tools. I'd hand him nails. We'd talk about our day, little things. The silence between us was comfortable, like a shared blanket. Then came Michael, our son. He was the sun around which our world began to spin. All my dreams of a classroom gently poured themselves into this one perfect child. I read to him every night. I helped him with his letters. Arthur taught him how to hold a hammer, how to ride a bike. Our life had a rhythm. Wash, cook, clean, work, garden, sleep. It was a rhythm of love, I told myself. It was the music of a family. Years passed in chapters marked by Michael's growth. First day of school. First football game. Graduation. When he left for university, the house echoed. The silence wasn't a blanket anymore. It was just empty. Arthur retired. I quit my job. We were supposed to start our someday. Our golden years. We talked about traveling. Maybe just to drive down the coast, no plans. We'd look at brochures sometimes. But Arthur started forgetting things. First, it was small. Where he put his keys. The name of a neighbor. We laughed about it. Getting old, he'd say. I'd smile and say, "Tell me about it." But then he'd get confused coming home from the hardware store. He'd look at me in the middle of dinner, a faint worry in his eyes, and ask, "Did we pay the electricity bill?" We had paid it that morning. Together. The doctor called it mild cognitive impairment. A step towards something else. Something bigger. I pushed the fear down. I became his memory. I kept the calendar. I repeated things. Arthur, your sister calls on Sunday. Arthur, the doctor is on Wednesday. Yes, dear. We already had lunch. It was a new rhythm. A quieter, more careful one. And then Michael met Sophia. Sophia was bright, ambitious, sharp as a new pin. She was a city girl. She had a career in marketing. She loved our Michael with a fierce, protective love. I saw how she looked at our small town, our quiet house. She saw it as charming but also simple. When they married, I was so happy for my son. He had found his person. When Sophia got pregnant, I cried with joy. A grandchild. A new beginning. They moved back to our town after little Emma was born. The housing market was bad in the city, they said. Just for a little while, Mom, Michael said. Until we get on our feet. Of course, I said yes. My son. My granddaughter. Under my roof. It felt like a blessing, a full circle. Arthur was delighted to have a baby in the house. He'd sit and watch Emma sleep, a soft smile on his face. For a little while, the house was loud again and busy, and it felt like a family. I didn't know it then, but that was when I began to disappear. Music shifts slightly, a subtle, unresolved chord lingers. Rising conflict. At first, it was just help. Mom, could you watch Emma while I run to the store? Helen, your meatloaf recipe is the best. Could you make it tonight? I was happy to. This was my role. The grandmother. The mother. The wife. I cooked bigger meals. I did more laundry. I rocked Emma to sleep while Sophia and Michael rested. But slowly, the help became an expectation. The expectation became my job. I was no longer Helen. I was Grandma, the live-in babysitter. I was Mom, the cook. What was my name for Arthur, now? Sometimes he called me the nice lady. Sometimes he just looked at me, searching. I'd say, "It's me, Arthur." Helen. And his eyes would clear for a second. Helen, he'd repeat and pat my hand. Then the fog would roll back in. Sophia started making changes. She rearranged the kitchen. "It's just more efficient, Helen," she'd say. My old pottery, the mugs Arthur made for me years ago, were moved to a high shelf. They're a bit chipped, and with the baby, new, modern dishes appeared. My calendar, with all of Arthur's appointments, was replaced by a whiteboard on the fridge. Sophia's handwriting was neat and bold. One evening, we were all at the table. I had made a stew, Arthur's favorite from an old recipe of his mother's. Sophia took a bite. "It's a bit salty for the baby, Helen," she said. "Maybe next time, we can use less stock?" I looked at Arthur. He was eating quietly, not tasting, just eating. Michael was on his phone, checking work emails. "Sure," I said. "I can do that." But inside, something small wrinkled. That recipe was a memory. It was a thread connecting Arthur to his childhood, to his mother, to me. And now it was too salty. The dialogues were never fights. They were tiny adjustments. Little corrections. "Helen, I think we should bathe Emma at 7, not 8. "Helen, I read that detergent is better for sensitive skin." "Mom, maybe don't tell Arthur old stories. It confuses him when they're not quite right." Each one was a brick. And I was the mortar, quietly holding them all in place, smoothing over the cracks. One rainy afternoon, Arthur had a bad day. He couldn't find the bathroom. He got upset, started calling for his long-deceased brother. I guided him gently, speaking in soft tones, finally getting him calm and into his armchair with his favorite blanket. I was exhausted. I sank into the chair opposite him, just watching the rain. Sophia came in with Emma. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just a rough patch," I whispered. "He's calm now." She looked at Arthur, then at me. "You know, Helen, maybe we should look at facilities. Places with professional care. For his good and yours. This is a lot for you." The word facilities hung in the air, cold and hard, like the rain hitting the window. "This is his home," I said, my voice firmer than I meant it to be. "I am his care." She just nodded. "We'll talk about it later." And she walked out. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the sounds of the house. My house. I heard my granddaughter cooing. I heard my son laughing at something on TV. I heard the low murmur of Sophia's voice. And I heard Arthur's soft snoring from the room next door. I was surrounded by my family, and I had never felt so alone. I was the background noise. The reliable appliance. The piece of furniture everyone expected to be in its place. I started having a recurring dream. I was in a vast, empty room and I was calling out names. Arthur. Michael. But my voice made no sound. I'd see them at the far end of the room, walking away, talking to each other. They couldn't hear me. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, in the quiet dark of my little room. The real conflict wasn't in loud words. It was in the silence that followed Sophia's suggestions. It was in Michael's avoidance. He'd hug me and say, "You're the best, Mom." But his eyes would dart away when I tried to talk about his father, about the future. He was caught between his wife and his mother, and he chose peace. I saw it. I understood it. And with every understanding, I shrank a little more. I began to count my words. I spoke less. I offered only what was asked. I folded myself into the corners of the life I had built, making myself smaller and smaller, so small I thought I might one day just vanish into the wallpaper. The breaking point wasn't a storm. It was a whisper. It was Arthur's 80th birthday. I wanted to make it special. A small thing, just cake and his favorite song. I spent the morning making a carrot cake, from scratch, the way his sister used to make it. I even found an old record of Frank Sinatra, his favorite. I put on a nice dress, the blue one he said reminded him of the sky on the day we got engaged. The family gathered in the living room. Sophia had ordered a fancy cake from a bakery in the city. It was beautiful, all smooth frosting and delicate sugar flowers. She placed it in the center of the table. My humble carrot cake sat off to the side, on a smaller plate. "Make a wish, Grandpa," little Emma chirped. Arthur looked at the big, beautiful cake. He blinked. He looked confused. Sophia helped him blow out the candles. We sang. Then she cut the bakery cake, serving everyone big slices. "Arthur," I said softly, leaning close. "I made your carrot cake. The one your sister Ruth used to make. Would you like a piece?" He looked at me. His eyes, usually cloudy, seemed to focus for a second. He looked right at me, into me, and he said, "Who are you?" The room didn't go silent. Emma was babbling. A spoon clinked. But for me, the world went utterly, completely silent. Those 3 words were a vacuum, sucking all the sound, all the air, out of my life. "Who are you?" 53 years. A lifetime of shared mornings and quiet evenings. A child raised. A home built. Laughter, tears, secrets, dreams deferred. All of it, distilled into 3 words from the man at the center of it all. I felt a smile form on my face. A bizarre, automatic reaction. A mask to hold back the collapse. "I'm Helen," I whispered, my voice cracking. He nodded politely, a stranger's nod, and turned his attention back to the sweet cake on his plate. I looked at Michael. He had heard. His face was pale, his eyes pained. He opened his mouth to say something, but Sophia touched his arm, handing him a napkin. The moment passed. He looked down. I stood up. "I'll make some tea," I said, my voice strangely steady. In the kitchen, I held onto the counter. I watched my knuckles turn white. I didn't cry. I just breathed. In the other room, I heard happy sounds. Birthday sounds. I was a ghost in my own kitchen. Later that night, after everything was quiet, I went to Arthur's room. He was in bed, awake, staring at the ceiling. "Arthur?" I said. He turned his head. "It's Helen, your wife." He studied my face in the dim light. "Helen," he repeated. It was just a word to him. A name. "Do you remember the little house on Maple Street? The one with the porch you rebuilt?" "No recognition." "Do you remember the day Michael was born? It was raining so hard." "Nothing." Do you remember you promised to build me a good life?" He smiled then, a gentle, empty smile. "That sounds like a nice promise," he said. And then he closed his eyes, drifting towards sleep. I sat there for a long time. I realized I had been clinging to a ghost. The man I loved, The man who knew me was gone. The shell of him was here, but our story, our private, shared world, existed only in my memory now. I was the sole keeper of a library that was burning down, book by book. And in this house, with my son and his new family, I was not the keeper of anything. I was a piece of the past, a relic. I was in everyone's way, trying to tend to a ghost in a house that was no longer my home. The next morning, Sophia found me in the garden. I was just staring at the rose bush Arthur planted for me, decades ago. It was still blooming.
"Helen," she said.
Her voice was not unkind. It was resolute. It was the voice of a woman running a household. I turned to look at her. "Michael and I have been talking," she began. She took a breath. "We think we know this is hard, but we think it's time. For everyone's well-being. Emma needs stability. Arthur needs more than we can give here. We've found a wonderful care home for him. It has a great memory unit." She paused, watching my face. I gave her nothing. I was all out of reactions. "And for you, we think it might be time for you to have your own space. A nice senior apartment. We've even looked at a few. You'd be free, Helen. No more cooking, cleaning, babysitting. You could relax." She made it sound like a gift.
"À promotion."
Retirement. This house, she continued, gently, as if explaining to a child. It's too big for you to manage. And with the market so good, Michael and I, we could buy it from you. We'd make it a true home for Emma. It would stay in the family. There it was. The full picture. The puzzle complete. They would put Arthur away. They would put me away. And they would take the house, the last solid piece of my life with Arthur. "So," she said, her voice final, "we think it's best if you start looking for a place. We can help you pack." That's when she said it. The line that hung in the air. "It's time for you to leave, Helen." And I smiled. Because what else was left to do? Cry? Scream? Beg my son to remember the mother who read him stories? Beg my husband to remember the wife he loved? They couldn't hear me. I had already been silent for too long. I looked past her, through the kitchen window. I could see Michael inside, pretending to be busy. He couldn't even face me. He had signed off on this, with his silence. "All right," I said. That was my entire rebellion. One calm, quiet word. Packing a lifetime is a strange and hollowing process. You don't just pack objects. You pack echoes. I opened drawers and found handkerchiefs Arthur had given me. Tickets from a movie we saw in 1978. Michael's first tooth. A dried corsage from a long-ago dance. Each one was a whisper. I put most of it in boxes for storage. I couldn't take the echoes with me. They were too heavy. Michael tried to talk to me once. He came into my room, his eyes red-rimmed. "Mom, this isn't..." Sophia just wants what's best. For everyone. This is so hard on her too.
I
stopped folding a sweater and looked at him.
My boy.
The man he had become. "Michael," I said, my voice calm. "Do you remember what you called your favorite stuffed bear?" He frowned, confused. "What?" "Mr. Binks." "Mr. Binks," I nodded. "You left him at the park when you were 5. We drove back in the dark, with a flashlight, and found him in the sandbox. You cried and said, 'You found him, Mommy. You always find what's lost.'" He stared at me, a lump in his throat. "I am lost, Michael," I said softly. "And you're not looking." He broke down then. He sobbed, hugging me. He said he was sorry, so sorry. But he never said, "Stop packing." He never said, "Stay." His apology was for the hurt, not for the action. He was sorry for the symptom, but he still believed in the cure. Their cure. The day they took Arthur to the care home was the worst day. He was frightened. He didn't understand. He held onto the doorframe, his old, strong builder's hands gripping the wood. "I want to stay home," he kept saying, his voice small. "It's a new home, Arthur," Sophia said, her voice cheerful. "You'll like it." I walked over to him. I pried his fingers gently from the wood. I held his hands in mine. I looked into his scared, cloudy eyes. "Arthur," I said, slowly and clearly, "you have to go now. It will be okay." He searched my face. For a fleeting, heartbreaking second, there was a spark. Not of memory, but of connection. Of trust. He saw me. Not Helen, his wife. But me, the kind woman who had been there. He relaxed his grip. "All right," he whispered, echoing my word from days before. I helped him into the car. I waved as they drove away. I watched the car until it turned the corner and vanished. I was standing on the porch of the house he built for me, waving goodbye to him. The irony was a physical pain. Then it was my turn. I had found a small apartment. Not a senior community. Just a plain, quiet apartment with a window that looked out at a different tree. It was neutral. It had no memories. My last morning in the house, I walked through empty rooms. Our bedroom. The nursery. The kitchen. I could hear the ghosts. Baby Michael laughing. Arthur hammering. The sizzle of 100 breakfasts. The quiet talks at this table. Now it was just a shell, waiting for new paint, new furniture, a new life. I left the keys on the kitchen counter. I took one suitcase and a small box of photos. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The first month in the apartment was the quietest of my life. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. I could hear myself think. I realized I hadn't heard my own thoughts in years. They were always crowded out by lists, by needs, by the constant, gentle vigilance of care. I visited Arthur every day. In his new place, he was calm. The staff was kind. He had no memory of the house, of me, of our life. He called me the visitor lady. Sometimes we'd sit and listen to music, Frank Sinatra, and sometimes his foot would tap. A tiny echo. That was enough. I learned to love the ghost. I learned to let go of the man who was gone and care for the man who was here. It was a cleaner, sadder love. A love without past or future. Just the present. One day, Michael and Sophia came to my apartment with Emma. They brought a housewarming plant. It was awkward. We sat on my new sofa. Emma played on the rug. "The house looks great, Mom," Michael said. We painted the living room a light gray. "That's nice," I said. A silence fell. Sophia spoke. "Helen, we hope you're not too unhappy." I looked at her. I saw then that she wasn't a villain. She was a woman building her own family, her own story. She needed space and she took it. She saw an old woman and a sick man as problems to be solved. She wasn't cruel. She was practical. And in her practicality, she erased me. "I am adjusting," I said truthfully. After they left, I felt a surprising thing. Not anger. Not even deep sadness. A sort of quiet relief. The war was over. I had surrendered, and in surrendering, I had found a strange, lonely peace. I started going to the library. I checked out books just for me. I took walks without telling anyone where I was going. I signed up for a class. A writing class. The teacher said, "Write what you know." So I began to write. I wrote about the girl who loved books. I wrote about the smell of sawdust and the sound of a promise. I wrote about carrot cake recipes and lost stuffed bears. I was building a new world, word by word, in a notebook. It was a world no one could take from me. I was building a life for Helen. Not the wife, the mother, the grandmother, the caregiver. Just Helen. It was very, very small. But it was mine. It's been a year now. I sit in my apartment at my small table by the window. I can see a maple tree. Its leaves are turning gold. There's a peace here. I saw Michael last week. He came alone. He looked older, tired. He talked about work, about Emma. Then he went quiet. "Mom," he said, I don't think I ever thanked you. For everything. For Dad. For me. For all of it." I nodded. "You're welcome." "Do you hate us?" he asked, his voice small, like the boy who lost Mr. Binks. "No, Michael," I said.
And I meant it.
"I don't hate you. I miss you. I miss the way things were. But I understand the way things are." He cried then. And this time, it wasn't for me to comfort him. He was crying for himself, for his own choices, for the complicated man he had become. I let him cry. I just sat there, being his mother, but from a new distance. I still visit Arthur. Yesterday, I was feeding him some applesauce. He looked at me and he smiled. A clear, sweet smile. "You have a kind face," he said. "Thank you, Arthur," I said. "Do I know you?" he asked. I thought about it. I thought about the long, tangled thread of our lives.
In
a way, I said. "We're friends."
He seemed satisfied with that.
"Good," he said. "It's good to have a friend." And you know, it was good. It was a new truth. A simpler one. I gave up everything. My dreams. My home. My history. My identity as a wife. And, in the end, my husband forgot who I was. But in that empty space he left behind, in that quiet apartment, I found a person I had forgotten, too. Myself. The lesson I learned is a quiet one. It's not about blame. It's about visibility. We must never let ourselves become so useful, so quiet, so folded into the needs of others, that we disappear. Love should not be a silent erasure. Even when caring, even when giving, you must leave a space with your name on it. You must sometimes say, "I am here. See me." Because one day, you might look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. And one day, the people you love might look right through you. My story isn't over. It's just different. It's smaller and quieter. The music is slower, but I am listening to it now. I am finally hearing my own song. So if you are in the middle of giving everything away, pause. Just for a moment. Put your hand on your heart and feel its beat. That is your rhythm. That is your story. Don't lose it. Don't hand it over, piece by piece, until you have nothing left but a smile for the person asking you to leave. Hold on to your name. My name is Helen, and this is my beginning. "Away," I said. "We're friends."
He seemed satisfied with that.
"Good," he said. "It's good to have a friend." And you know, it was good. It was a new truth. A simpler one. I gave up everything. My dreams. My home. My history. My identity as a wife. And, in the end, my husband forgot who I was. But in that empty space he left behind, in that quiet apartment, I found a person I had forgotten, too. Myself. The lesson I learned is a quiet one. It's not about blame. It's about visibility. We must never let ourselves become so useful, so quiet, so folded into the needs of others, that we disappear. Love should not be a silent erasure. Even when caring, even when giving, you must leave a space with your name on it. You must sometimes say, "I am here. See me." Because one day, you might look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. And one day, the people you love might look right through you. My story isn't over. It's just different. It's smaller and quieter. The music is slower, but I am listening to it now. I am finally hearing my own song. So if you are in the middle of giving everything away, pause. Just for a moment. Put your hand on your heart and feel its beat. That is your rhythm. That is your story. Don't lose it. Don't hand it over, piece by piece, until you have nothing left but a smile for the person asking you to leave. Hold on to your name. My name is Helen, and this is my beginning.